and welcome back to Logan Sounds Off. Today I'm going to be reviewing Changing Light by the Ironsides. This is their debut album released in 2023. It's an incredible group. I discovered these via my dad playing it once for me, and I went, wow, this is incredible. Then I started to discover more about them. I was listening to the album a lot more. Changing Light was something that was definitely something that we were always listening to in the car. It's such an incredible album. And recently enough, actually, I was lucky enough to speak to Lou King, who arranged the orchestra, and also he was the orchestrator of this album. He's credited here on the tons of credits, but he is credited right here. But he is an incredible guy, really, really interesting. Our chat was super cool. The link to our chat will be down below. If you would like to listen to it, I'd really strongly recommend it. It's an incredible interview. And honestly, this album was just really cool to listen to, and I'm excited to tell you why. There's some incredible tracks on it, and it gained a lot of attention. This was released on Colemine Records, and also I couldn't buy this because with shipping in the States, and it was harder to find here in Ireland. So Lou sent it to me on this amazing coloured vinyl. Absolutely amazing. Sorry. Yeah, it's opening here. Sorry. It's really, really beautiful, and it's slightly transparent as well, as you can see. It's Colemine Records. Yeah, it actually says soulful sounds are on Colemine Records. So yeah, thank you. Big shout out to Lou. Obviously, if you are curious about Lou, all of his socials, all links towards Lou's stuff will be down below. So thanks so much, Lou. It was a very kind thing to do for me. I really appreciate it, and I've been listening to the album a lot, as you can see, because I'm doing a review here now. Now, before I get into it, I wanted to ask you guys, a very small percentage of my viewers actually subscribe to me. If you are a viewer who views my channel a lot, appreciates my reviews, finds the interviews interesting, or if you're a first timer, the subscription button is so much appreciated. It gives me the chance to get better interviews, which in turn you guys get to look at those really cool chats and discover more about the musicians you love. So if you could add that subscription, it would really help me, and also you might get some really cool interviews as well to watch. So thanks so much for that. Just quickly, I want to talk to you about that. Now, getting into the album. Changing Light as a piece is really, really cool. It's not very long. I believe it's 34 minutes. It's below 40 minutes. But there's a lot of great music crammed into those minutes. It is in no way a low quality short album. This is a high quality burst of music that's incredible to listen to, really, really interesting and fun just to listen to, as it can be both playful and film noir-esque type themes as well, like On the Web, which I'll get to in a sec. That has some really, really much more kind of a darker sound to it, not in a sad way or anything. It just has a really cool dark sound to it, especially with the rhythmic kind of guitar that's in it as well. It's really, really cool that way. So the one thing actually about this album in general is how dynamic it is insane. That it can go from something like Changing Light, the opening and title track, which is really, really relaxing and fun and just really, really cool and vast as well, from something too like The Web, as I mentioned earlier, the following track on the record, which is much more darker and has a very different vibe to it, and it's mixed very differently. It's really, really interesting. Yet what I find quite admirable about this record is that it's subtle differences. It's not like you're going from extreme to another extreme of maybe very relaxed to very harsh music. It's very subtle the way it changes, and it flows very well. It does feel very natural and quite spontaneous the way the tracks go, and it feels really cool that way. Emphasis on natural. It sounds really, really cool, this album, and it works really well. Not only the way the songs are arranged, but the tracks are throughout the album, the way it transitions from song to song. The theme doesn't get skewed throughout it, yet you discover so many different aspects of the album that you may not have heard before on maybe side B, something that you didn't hear on side A. It's really more of a one large piece of exploration of Changing Light than 8 different songs that are separate. They really run into each other quite well. Though saying this, it's not like a very large piece that's difficult to get through. It's very, very interesting in this way. It's quite relaxing and easy on the ears to listen to as well. And probably not the first time though, because you're so mind blown on how it works. It's really, really interesting that way. Starting off with, as I was speaking about, the opening track and the title track, which is Changing Light, which is a really incredible track. If you haven't heard of Ironsides before, the Ironsides, check out this particular song. I think it introduces the band very well and the album. Obviously, if you want to stream, buy, or follow the Ironsides, all the links that you will need will down below, and that also is true for Colemine Records, who brought this album out into the world. So big shout out to Colemine Records and the Ironsides for making this record. But Changing Light, this starts off with some little chords on a ukulele that evolves into something way more. And I really, really like this, how progressive the track forms, going from just a really simple yet vast. I appreciate how reverberated the ukulele chords are into something much more, as these uplifting strings soar into the track and bring much more to the table and make the ukulele sound a lot more textured and a lot more important to the track. And I think that's really, really interesting. It doesn't mean the ukulele fades out completely. It does very well kind of blend into the background, and I really, really like that. I believe it's a ukulele. It sounds very like it, but it's actually not credited in the credits. It might just be a guitar with the capo very high up on the fretboard. I'm not sure, but it does sound very like a ukulele, and it's really, really interesting to hear. And I think it's a very unique way and kind of cool and, again, experimental way to introduce this music. And I think that's kind of cool that they want to make a really fun piece, but they also want to make it interesting at the same time. And I just appreciated that little touch of the ukulele. I thought that was really, really cool to listen to. So as I was speaking about these incredible strings that soar during the track, that bring you in kind of, and you travel with until it progresses towards the end, and then we move on to the web, which I'll get to in a sec. The bass trombone adds a whole other layer altogether to the album, and I quite like that. All the different instruments that are on this record really work together well, and they mash together and make the album sound really special. As well, with the bass trombone, it kind of emphasizes different notes of the strings and makes it sound quite beautiful, and I really, really like this, so I would definitely listen out for that when you're listening to the track. The distant French horn that you hear as well occasionally during the track that pop in and again add another feel to it, where you're starting off with this vastness of the ukulele, the broad feel of these soaring strings, the very large bassy emphasis of these trombones. Now with the distant French horn, it's another texture that really, really works with the album, the track, and on the album as well, and gives a certain vastness that I think without the song wouldn't have been as good. The drums are really, really good, but I also really like the subtle tambourine that plays as well with the drums, that I think makes the song sound a lot more interesting. I only noticed the tambourine recently, just while reviewing the album. I was listening out for specific instruments. Obviously, now with the record, that's much easier to go through the different instruments, and I found that the tambourine actually really was an uplifting factor towards the track. And if you are listening, listen out for that tambourine playing with the drums. I think it makes the drums sound a lot cooler and a lot more fun. And I think that's really, really important. Changing Light as the opening and title track is the first thing you're going to either click on if you're streaming it, or buy, or put the needle, drop the needle onto. So I think that's really, really interesting, and I was so happy to see that this was just another interesting part of the album that I hadn't discovered. Again, because this album is so vast and has so many different instruments and has so many textures that are unexplored usually in other albums, this is really, really interesting, this particular album, to go through the different instruments and have a look at who plays them, how they affect the track, the mood that develops throughout with the instruments. For example, with the bass trombones, as I mentioned earlier, that develops a really kind of vast tone that I think is really important to the track and makes it more clear and cleaner, nearly you could say, and more fun to listen to. So I think that's really, really interesting, and I do want to emphasize on that. So if you are listening to this, or if you've listened to this album digitally, or you maybe bought the download, consider buying the vinyl. It's really, really good, and it sounds quite different on vinyl than it would listening to it maybe in a car stereo or on an MP3. So seriously consider that, because I think it adds a whole new texture. Now, knowing this as well, it's not kind of the vinyl makes or breaks the album either. I do think that the vinyl is important to the album, and I think it's the best way to listen to it from listening to it on streaming. I would recommend the vinyl, but streaming is quite cool as well. You might just want to try it with some headphones. Now, moving on to the film noir-esque track that I've been referring to multiple times throughout the album, that I think is a good basis to look at how dynamic this album is. The Web is a truly magnificent track that I think most people will listen to Changing Light and go, oh, this is going to be just replicated throughout the whole album. First of all, it's very, very hard to replicate that sound. Changing Light captures something that's just not really captured nowadays, but I think that's really, really interesting. However, they didn't strive to just recapture this constantly throughout the album. They do move on to the Web, which is a very different tone, has a whole new sound, and definitely allows you to explore and discover more of the Ironsides sound. Whether that be the incredible kind of rhythmic guitar riffs that make it so special, or if you're listening to the amazing drums as well throughout this song. It's a truly incredible song to listen to. Again, I would have this as one of my highlights to listen to, along with another track that's up towards the end of side B, which I'll be getting to soon, which I would highly recommend. But this particular track is really, really cool, and as a standalone track, to maybe hear this as a single, or if this album wasn't released, this single was just released, I think it would be quite cool. It doesn't get lost in the album, but it is a good standalone track by itself, which I think is really, really interesting, and something that should be commended for. It's an amazing track, so definitely check that out. Now, along with this, it's quite an exciting track with these more film noir kind of vibes to them, kind of darker vibes. It's really, really interesting. It has a really cool bass line, which I think is very important, that partners up with the guitar strumming really, really well and makes it sound incredible. These awesome drums parade throughout the song and make it sound beautiful, and I think the drums on this album are generally very good, but on this particular song I just wanted to highlight them, but as well a particular part of the drum. I really love the ride cymbal in this track. I think it adds a whole new sound to the song, and I would listen out for that ride cymbal if you're a drummer or not. I think it's very interesting. There was also an amazing fuzzy guitar part in this song, along with some other songs during this album. I believe Violet Vanished is another that has a fuzz guitar part that's played in it, as well as this super cool guitar riff that accompanies this awesome kind of brass section as well. The brass section in this song is incredible and adds really just an extra spice to this amazing kind of just meal of music that we've been just served up. I think it's really, really cool. So The Web is an incredible track. Moving on then, and I'm sorry, I'm going to botch the pronunciation of this. Linguarian Dream, I believe. I'm not sure. Appropriately, for this it being called a dream, there's an amazing slide guitar sound at this song that has some incredible reverb, which I really, really like. I think it's really, really cool, this sound, and I think it's very, very important as well in it, and it matches this playful harp and sweet, blissful strings that I think are really, really important and really cool throughout this particular song. I think it's really, really interesting. And then the kind of carefree feel of the drums are really, really cool, with some reverb too again, and the drums and well mixed bass really work well together, which I think is super, super important, and I think that's really, really cool to be listening to. Now, before we move on to side B, there's one more track that finishes off side A, which is A Return from the Ashes, and this begins with some amazing classical guitar, which is soon accompanied by some vast strings. And these vast strings again add another texture. But the classical guitar is something that is less experienced throughout this album, and I think it's really, really cool. And a nice touch again, showing how Ironsides experiment with different instruments throughout this album, which I think is really, really cool. So definitely have a listen to Return from the Ashes if you haven't heard it before. The tuba also is a really cool sound that makes the song sound much deeper, along with an amazing trumpet kind of solo towards the end, which is just really, really cool. You don't hear many trumpet solos, so that was awesome to hear. And I just thought it was a really fun touch. I really enjoyed listening to that trumpet solo. It was cool, and I just thought the sound of it was incredible. Again, the brass section is incredible on this album, but I do think that the trumpet solo really gave a chance for the brass section to shine during this track, and also it kind of now emphasizes a bit more on the section throughout the album. Then you got Shades of Silver, and this is a really nice, relaxing song that opens up side B. It has a really nice string sound that I think is unmatched by any other strings sound on the album. I think it's slightly reminiscent of Changing Light, that carefree kind of relaxing feel that we got on Changing Light, the first song. And then it kind of is replicated, not exactly, but similarly to open up the second side as Shades of Silver, which I think is really, really cool. I also think that the bass lines are very prominent. They're very loud, especially on vinyl. They're mixed very loudly, not in a bad way. They are blend in, but they're also quite an important part of leading the song nearly, that I think is really, really cool. So if you're a bassist, or if you like guitar, and if you're just a listener in general, I would listen out for that bass line. It's really, really awesome, especially on vinyl. Then as well, you have the track Violet Vanished, and this is a much darker track than its predecessor, with really cool guitar and this ambient fuzz that's really, really awesome, to an amazing voice. The voice of this, I'm actually going to get the name because I just want to give it a big shout out, is I'm sorry if I mispronounce this name, Kimiko Joy. And I really love the vocals on this particular track. I think it really adds to this song, and it parades through the track, as well as the string section of this song is really, really cool. It's really, really awesome. And this bass line's really, really cool as well on Violet Vanished. Again, just like Shades of Silver, the incredible bass lines continue on as well. So I just thought that was really cool, that you might enjoy listening to. The ambient fuzz on this, though, is really, really cool, and I think it's important, that fuzz guitar. So that's what I was speaking about earlier on Violet Vanished. Then you have Outlines, and I love the beat of this song, just kind of upbeat, and the violin and the flute. Actually, the flute, and I'm going to get the name of who did the flute on this particular track. David, if it's Weiss or Weiss, I'm not sure, Weiss, I'm going to say, played the flute and the alto flute on this particular song, and I think it adds something super special to this track. It's actually one of my favourite tracks on the album, and it adds this kind of cool, hopeful tone to the song that's really, really nice and very uplifting, and it adds great feelings, kind of this upbeat sound towards the end of the record. Obviously we still have West Wind, which is an incredible finish that we experienced towards the end. But Outlines is really, really cool as well. And I think it's super important throughout the album. Definitely check out Outlines as my favourite track. I would have to say Outlines is definitely one of them. One of them. Not the one, but one of them. Then you got West Wind, our great finale, which is an incredible piece of music that closes out the album perfectly, with this slightly relaxing tone as well that we had on the opening track, Changing Light, the opening track of side B, with Shades of Silver, and some of the other tracks on this album. So I think West Wind kind of rounds up the album very well, and I think that's really cool. And just overall, an amazing finish towards the album. Overall, out of 5 stars, I'm going to rate this a strong 5 stars. This is one of my favourite albums of all time, full stop. For the moment anyways. I really enjoyed listening to this. To speak to Lou King about this and much more was really, really cool. Again, links are all down below. Please stream. But, before you go, please subscribe. If you do like my channel, if you watch it a lot, please subscribe. It's so helpful. You don't realize how helpful it is. Also, leaving a comment. My comment box is always open. Do you like this album? Do you have the album? Do you disagree on my points? Do you completely agree? Let me know. All comments are read and they're very, very deeply appreciated. I will make sure to try and see your comment and also get a response to you. It's really, really cool. Also, like the video. Liking always adds just a little bit of support. That's so helpful to me and really shows that you, the viewer, enjoyed it. Also, if you know a friend who's a fan of the Ironsides, like this kind of nearly cinematic music, definitely share it on. Also, if you've done all these things, or if you've just liked and subscribed, I know sometimes sharing isn't the easiest, and commenting, you might not have any comments. Do check out my Luke King interview, because it was very, very interesting. Make sure to check out Colemine and follow them on social media as well with Luke King and the Ironsides. It's really, really helpful to them. And again, before we go, big shout out to Luke King for sending me this record. Big shout out to Colemine for putting this out. And big shout out for the Ironsides for making this beautiful album. So, 5 out of 5 stars. That is my review for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Goodbye.